The night sky over Earth was calm, filled with quiet stars that had watched humanity for thousands of years. But tonight, something new moved among them, something not human. The first alien ship appeared just before dawn. It came without sound, gliding slowly across the upper atmosphere. Within minutes, hundreds more followed, forming a shining wall of light above the world. Every screen, every satellite, every radio came alive with one message: we come in peace. People around the planet froze. For the first time in history, Earth was united by one moment: contact. The aliens called themselves the Galactic Union, a council of many star nations that claimed to bring peace and order to young civilizations. Their message was calm, their voices soft. They promised friendship, technology, and guidance. They said they had watched Earth for centuries, waiting for humans to become ready. But something in their tone was wrong. Too perfect. Too practiced. In the Great Hall of the United Earth Command, leaders from every nation gathered. The screen above them showed the alien emissary, a tall, silver-skinned being with bright, cold eyes. It smiled, but the smile never reached its eyes. "We come to share peace," it said. "But peace requires trust. You must first disarm your orbital weapons. You must lower your shields." The hall went silent. The request was clear. Earth's generals exchanged looks. Every soldier in the room knew what this was: not peace, but surrender. In orbit, the alien ships hung motionless. Their massive hulls glimmered like glass, reflecting sunlight across the oceans. Civilians across the world cheered, waved flags, and recorded videos. But inside the Human Defense Network, alarms were flashing. Deep in the hidden command centers, Earth's intelligence officers were reading intercepted alien signals. The translation was slow, but one line repeated again and again through the static: once they disarm, strike fast. End resistance. Take the planet clean. The truth spread quietly among human leaders. The so-called peace was only a trap. The aliens wanted Earth's resources, its water, its air, its people. The Galactic Union had done this before. Old reports from lost colonies in the outer systems confirmed it. Worlds that accepted peace were stripped bare and left silent. Earth would not be the next. Commander Rain, head of orbital defense, stood at the window of his station, watching the alien fleet drift like shadows. "They think we're weak," he said softly. "They think we'll bow." His second-in-command looked nervous. "What are your orders, sir?" Rain didn't answer immediately. He stared at the stars for a long moment, then said, "Prepare Aegis Protocol. But do not engage. Let them make the first move. Let the galaxy see who fires first." Far below, deep beneath the Pacific, the Aegis Defense Corps came online. Massive cannons hidden inside mountains rotated into position. Orbital shields powered up, and visible fields wrapping around the planet. But no one outside the command network knew. To the world, Earth looked peaceful. To the aliens, it looked compliant. But in silence, Earth was loading its guns. The next morning, the Galactic Union sent their ambassadors to Earth's orbit. Their ships opened like petals, releasing thousands of shining drones that formed holographic bridges between ships and the planet's stations. The alien envoy's voice echoed across all human frequencies. "Brothers of the stars, we offer peace. Disarm your weapons, and join the Union. Refuse, and you will remain alone forever." The crowd in Earth's cities watched from rooftops. Children waved. Reporters called it the dawn of unity. But in secret rooms, Earth's admirals saw the truth. Union warships were shifting formation, their power signatures rising. They were charging weapons. Human analysts in the Lunar Relay Station confirmed it first. Energy spike detected. Union flagship arming main cannon. The message raced through the defense network. Commander Rain's voice came cold and calm through the comms: "Record everything. Do not fire. Let them show the truth." At that moment, the alien flagship lit the sky. A beam of blue energy formed at its front. Civilians watching from telescopes thought it was a sign of greeting. They were wrong. The beam struck Earth's outer shield, a blinding flash rippled across the upper atmosphere. Alarms screamed. Every global network went dark for 3 seconds. The first shot had been fired. In the command room, silence fell. Everyone looked at Commander Rain. He simply nodded once. "Activate all defense systems. Broadcast to the galaxy," he said. They wanted peace. Now they'll see how humans keep it. The orbital cannons of Earth came alive. Energy surged through their cores. Satellites shifted into combat formation. The humans had waited, watched, and endured, but no more. The sky was no longer calm. It was ready for war. Above the planet, the alien fleet realized their mistake too late. The first response volley from Earth hit faster than light. 10 alien ships exploded in seconds. The debris burned bright over the dark side of the Earth, lighting the night like falling stars. The Galactic Union's comm message of peace turned into screams of confusion. On every human screen, the world saw it happen. The lie was over. The aliens had attacked. Earth had answered. Humanity would not bow. They would not beg. They would not forgive. And as the fires of battle lit the sky, one line of text flashed across every human defense terminal: Operation Iron Peace, initiated. The message was simple. The meaning was clear. Peace was broken. And now, humanity was awake. The alien attack had shaken the skies, but what came next was silence. Not fear. Not panic. Just a cold, focused silence that spread through every human command center across Earth and its colonies. It was the silence before a storm. In orbit, debris from the first destroyed alien ships drifted slowly, glowing like dying embers. Civilians on the ground watched in disbelief as burning fragments painted red trails across the night. Every newsfeed repeated the same headline: "The Galactic Union has fired first." Humanity now had proof, and the galaxy had seen it live. The so-called peacekeepers had revealed their true faces. In the underground war room beneath Geneva, Commander Rain stood before the central display. The image of the alien fleet filled the screens, hundreds of ships still in formation, slowly adjusting their weapons. The voice of the AI, Aegis, filled the room with calm precision. Enemy fleet strength at 70%. All defense grids are operational. Awaiting command. Rain's expression didn't change. His voice was steady but sharp. Hold fire. Let them make the next mistake. We show the galaxy that humanity never fires first, but we always finish what others start. Around him, officers moved with perfect coordination. No shouting, no chaos. The years of training were showing. Every radar, every targeting system locked on the alien fleet, yet no one pulled the trigger. On the moon, the lunar defense grid hummed quietly. Massive laser platforms rotated, following their targets. Humanity had learned patience through pain, and now that patience was their greatest weapon. The Galactic Union, unaware of the trap they had just walked into, continued their broadcast. The alien admiral's voice crackled across all frequencies. Earth has responded with aggression. Surrender your defenses, or we will bring peace through fire. It was a twisted message, the kind that sounded righteous to those who didn't know the truth. But the galaxy had seen the recording. Millions of species across distant worlds were watching the same footage, the Union's first strike and Earth's silent endurance. For the first time, doubt began to spread beyond the stars. In orbit, the alien fleet adjusted its formation again. Smaller ships broke off, moving toward Earth's upper atmosphere. Their scanners swept through the clouds, searching for shield weaknesses. Inside the command station, Aegis detected the movement instantly. Enemy recon wings are descending, the AI reported. Recommend engagement. Commander Rain shook his head. Negative. Track them. When they cross the limit, lock them down. His second officer frowned. Sir, they're coming close to civilian airspace. Rain's eyes were hard. Then they'll see what peace really costs. At that same moment, the HSS Vengeance, a human stealth cruiser orbiting above the dark side of the planet, activated its cloaked systems. The Vengeance was built for one purpose: to observe, record, and strike only when the truth was undeniable. Its captain, a quiet man named Lauren Vale, watched the alien ships through the black glass of the bridge. "They're probing," he murmured. His tactical officer nodded. "Orders, sir?" Vale replied, "Record every move. If they open fire again, we show them what humanity really is." Down on Earth, the cities below lived in half-darkness. Communications were unstable, but people were calm. Humanity had faced extinction before, plagues, wars, famine, and every time, they had survived. Now they faced something far greater, but their unity held. Families gathered around screens, watching the skies. Soldiers stood ready across every continent. Somewhere deep underground, a child whispered to his mother, "Are we losing?" She shook her head, looking up toward the rumbling heavens. "No," she said softly. "We're just waiting." High above, the waiting ended. The alien ships moved too close, crossing the invisible line that marked Earth's defense perimeter. In an instant, every human weapon system came online. Aegis' voice echoed through the command rooms, engagement protocols unlocked. Awaiting confirmation. Commander Rain gave a single nod. "All stations, target non-civilian units only. Fire authorization, conditional." The officers froze, their fingers hovering over the command inputs. "Conditional, sir?" Rain smiled slightly. "They'll fire again. They always do. When they do, we respond." Seconds later, the alien recon fleet opened fire. Small plasma bolts struck against the outer shields, flaring bright against the upper atmosphere. The sensors screamed. Rain's hand dropped. "All units, return fire." The silence shattered. From the surface of the moon, beams of white light tore through space. From orbit, kinetic cannons fired bursts that glowed like shooting stars. Every strike hit with surgical precision. The alien recon ships never stood a chance. They exploded in rapid succession, their debris burning up in the atmosphere. The crowd on Earth saw it happen. Their fear turned into pride. They cheered, cried, and saluted the sky. Humanity had answered. The alien admiral watched from his flagship, furious. "Impossible," he hissed. "Primitive worlds can't resist this long." His aides reported heavy losses. In desperation, he ordered his fleet forward. "Erase their shields. I want their world broken." But even as the order left his mouth, new signals appeared, human warships rising from orbit, hidden bases, and dark stations lighting up across the solar system. The alien fleet realized too late, they were surrounded. Back on the Vengeance, Captain Vale's crew stared at the growing lightstorm. "Sir, it's starting," his officer said. Vale nodded grimly. "Then let the galaxy witness it." He opened a secure line to Commander Rain. "We have full record of alien first strikes. Should we release it?" Rain answered, "Do it. Let every world see who they call peacemakers." The message was transmitted. Within minutes, the footage spread through galactic networks, proof of betrayal, proof of the lie. Across distant colonies and neutral worlds, beings watched in silence as the Galactic Union's fleet fired first and Earth fought back. The image of humanity, small, defiant, unbroken, burned into the hearts of billions. As the last of the alien recon ships exploded, the skies above Earth went quiet again. Only drifting wreckage remained. Commander Rain looked out the window, the reflection of fire in his eyes. "They came offering peace," he said softly. "And now they'll learn what our peace truly means." Aegis' voice responded quietly. "What are your next orders, Commander?" Rain turned to his officers, his expression cold as steel. "Prepare the fleet. We've shown restraint. Now it's time they understand what humanity can do when the silence ends." And in the black of space, human ships began to move, slowly, deliberately, like predators awakened from a long sleep. The silent response was over. The next chapter would not be silence. It would be fire. The sky burned like dawn come too early. The first plasma bolts from the alien fleet tore across the upper atmosphere, slicing through clouds and leaving glowing scars behind. For a moment, the world stood still, not out of fear but in disbelief. The aliens had done it. They had attacked Earth directly. Cities went dark as power grids shut down under the energy surge. Satellites burst like fireworks in orbit. Over the Pacific, a blue beam slammed into the ocean, creating a wave taller than mountains. Humanity had seen war before, but never like this. This was not conquest. This was extermination. Deep underground, in the command center of United Earth Defense, Commander Rain stood firm as the world above shook. "Report," he ordered, his voice steady amid chaos. "Shields holding at 80%, replied Aegis, the AI, calm and precise as always. Multiple impacts detected across atmospheric layer 3. Civilian casualties minimal so far." Rain nodded. "Minimal is not good enough. Bring the orbital cannons online. It's time the galaxy learns what happens when fire falls on Earth." Officers rushed to their stations, faces pale but determined. The air in the room vibrated with tension and electricity. In orbit, the alien armada advanced like a moving wall of death. Their ships released swarms of drones, metallic spheres pulsing with plasma energy. Each one carried the power to level a city. They thought Earth would crumble quickly, as the other worlds had before. But this time was different. Humanity was ready. From hidden silos under deserts, mountains, and oceans, the response came. The sky filled with light, missiles, kinetic rounds, energy lances. From the moon's surface, laser platforms fired beams so bright they lit up the stars. The first alien wave disintegrated before reaching the lower atmosphere. For every blast that hit Earth, 10 alien ships fell burning into the void. The world watched as the impossible happened. Humans fought back, and they were winning. Across the galaxy, countless species tuned into the live broadcast. News drones from neutral worlds captured the battle as it unfolded. The Galactic Union's lie about human aggression crumbled instantly. Every explosion, every intercepted transmission told the same story. The aliens had fired first, and humanity had answered with fury. On distant planets, whispers began to spread. The humans, they fight like gods. On the HSS Vengeance, Captain Vale watched the chaos unfold from orbit. His stealth cruiser glided silently through the wreckage, recording everything. "Admiral," his comm officer said, "the Union fleet is losing cohesion. Their flagship's formation is breaking." Vale's eyes narrowed. "That's our chance. Feed targeting data to Hammer Command. Let's give them a taste of precision." Down on Earth, Commander Rain watched as the tactical display lit up with red icons, enemy ships destroyed one after another. "Maintain focus," he said. "No celebration yet. They still have numbers." The alien fleet regrouped, their central dreadnought charging a weapon big enough to tear through the atmosphere. Aegis warned immediately, power buildup detected on enemy capital ship. Impact projection, Earth command in 30 seconds. The command center trembled. Officers froze, waiting for Rain's order. He didn't shout. He simply said, "Aegis, counterstrike pattern Delta 7. Target their core." The ground shook as the orbital cannons unleashed their full power. Massive bolts of white energy cut through space, tearing straight into the alien flagship. For a second, it seemed to resist, its shields flaring bright blue. Then, in an instant, it exploded. The blast was so bright that even from the surface, people could see it, a second sun burning in the night. Cheers erupted across Earth. For the first time, humanity had destroyed a Galactic Union flagship. But the battle was far from over. The remaining alien fleets began to scatter, spreading across orbit to avoid being easy targets. Smaller ships dived toward the planet, desperate to cause damage before retreating. One broke through the shield over Europe, crashing into the countryside near Berlin. The explosion shook the ground, sending shockwaves miles away. Emergency teams rushed in, soldiers and civilians working side by side. Humanity had been attacked, but they were not breaking. They were becoming stronger with every moment. Commander Rain's voice echoed across all military frequencies. To every ship, every pilot, every soldier, defend your home. We are the line. We are humanity. His words carried through static and fire, a beacon of will that reached every human heart. From orbit to the oceans, humanity moved as one. Even damaged ships stayed in formation. Even dying soldiers kept fighting. The aliens had awakened something they did not understand, a united human rage forged from every betrayal and every loss. The alien admiral, watching from his command ship, could not believe what he was seeing. They were supposed to surrender, he hissed. Their world should be burning by now. His aide trembled. Sir, our losses are catastrophic. We've lost 70% of the fleet. The admiral slammed his clawed hand against the console. Retreat? No, not yet. Prepare the second wave. But before he could issue the order, his sensors picked up something massive moving behind Earth's orbit. A shadow larger than any ship they had ever seen. It was silent, cold, and terrifying. The AI aboard his ship whispered its scan results, unknown object detected, mass equivalent to 10 dreadnoughts. The admiral's voice cracked. What is that? The answer came seconds later, a human voice through the comm. This is Commander Rain. You fired first. Now you face the hammer of Sol. Every alien officer turned pale as the massive warship broke from Luna's shadow, its dark hull glowing faintly with heat. It moved like a mountain drifting through the void. Its engines roared once, and then the stars vanished in the blinding light of its first strike. The alien second wave never had a chance. Down on Earth, people looked up as the fire in the sky faded. The clouds glowed orange, the air trembling with the echoes of explosions above. The war was far from over, but something had changed. Humanity was no longer the hunted. They were the storm. Commander Rain watched the screens as silence fell across orbit. Send word to all fleets, he said quietly. Begin Phase 2. No mercy for deceivers. His officers saluted. Aegis confirmed, Phase 2 initiated. Fleet mobilization in progress. And as the last fires of the alien attack dimmed in the night, a new light rose from Earth, engines igniting, ships launching, humanity ascending. The era of silence was over. The age of war had begun. The battle for Earth had ended in flames, but humanity's war was only beginning. Across the solar system, the debris of the Galactic Union's shattered fleet drifted silently. The ocean still boiled in places where plasma had struck, and cities glowed faintly from the heat of orbital bombardment. Yet amid the smoke and ruin, the world stood unbroken. Humanity had survived what should have been its end, and now it was preparing its answer. Deep beneath the lunar surface, hidden under layers of titanium and stone, a silent giant waited. It was humanity's greatest secret, a weapon built not from hate but from fear, a fear of what might come if peace ever failed. Its name was Hammer of Sol. For decades, the existence of the hammer had been denied. It was a ghost project, a rumor whispered among soldiers and engineers. But now the time for shadows was over. The order had been given, awaken the Titan. Inside the enormous underground hangar, miles below Luna's surface, floodlights blinked to life, revealing a shape that dwarfed everything around it. The ship was nearly 20 kilometers long, its hull black and scarred with ancient weld lines. Every panel told a story of human desperation, of a species that built monsters to face monsters. The hangar trembled as ancient power systems came online for the first time in a century. Engineers in exosuits ran across platforms, reactivating reactors, rerouting energy through dormant conduits. One by one, the systems of the Titan came alive. Commander Rain stood on the control platform, looking down at the colossal ship as lights rippled across its surface like awakening eyes. His voice was low but filled with purpose. For years, they called us fragile. For years, they watched us bleed. Today, we show them what humanity becomes when cornered. His second officer, Captain Arya Cade, nodded. The hammer is old, sir. We're not sure if the core will hold under full load. Rain smiled slightly. Then let it burn. I'd rather it die roaring than sleep in silence. Far below them, the ship's main reactor began to pulse, a deep, rhythmic sound that shook the entire base. Blue light poured from the conduits, flowing through the Titan's veins like fire through arteries. The energy readings spiked across all sensors. Power core at 40% and climbing, reported an engineer. Weapons grid online. Shield generators charging. Every system that had slept for decades was now awake. The Hammer of Soul was breathing again. Outside the lunar base, the dust began to rise as the hangar doors split open. Slowly, the surface cracked apart, revealing the glowing hull beneath. The stars above reflected off the ship's armor, turning it into a mirror of fire and darkness. People on Earth looked up through telescopes and saw it for the first time, a shadow moving beneath the moon, larger than anything they had ever built. Whispers spread through the networks. The Titan has awakened. The phrase repeated everywhere, turning from rumor into hope. In the alien capital far across the stars, the Galactic Union Council watched the footage with disbelief. The alien leaders had assumed Earth's forces were crippled. Instead, they saw a warship that eclipsed anything they had ever created. "What is that?" demanded one of them, his voice trembling. The Union Admiral replied, "Our records show no such vessel in their databases. It's impossible." The council chamber filled with panic. "We must destroy it before it reaches our space." But they all knew, deep down, that it was too late. The humans had built something meant to fight gods. Inside the Titan, thousands of crew members took their stations. Veterans from old wars, pilots who had lost everything in the first wave, engineers born on colonies long destroyed, all now part of the same machine. Captain Cage stood beside Commander Rain on the command bridge, watching as systems came online one by one. Communication stable. Reactor stable at 80%. Weapons grid synchronized. Aegis, now integrated directly into the Titan systems, spoke through the intercom with its calm mechanical tone. Primary jump drive online. Destination locked, Mars defense perimeter. Rain looked at the stars displayed on the main viewport. "Then we go. Let's finish what they started." The hangar shook as the hammer's engines ignited. The lunar dust exploded outward in all directions, forming a cloud that could be seen from orbit. Slowly, the massive warship began to rise. Every thruster fired in perfect sequence, and for the first time, the Titan left the moon's surface. From Earth, people saw a bright light streak across the black sky, heading toward Mars. It wasn't just a ship, it was a promise. Humanity would not hide anymore. As the Hammer of Soul accelerated through space, its presence sent shockwaves through every sensor in the solar system. Alien scouts fleeing the battle near Jupiter caught sight of it and panicked. "It's enormous," one shouted over comms. "It's coming straight for us." The alien fleet's command ship tried to form a retreat formation, but the humans were already closing in. Commander Rain stood tall on the bridge as the stars stretched around them. "Engage stealth field," he ordered. "Let them feel the darkness before the fire." The massive ship vanished from every alien radar, leaving nothing but static in its wake. Minutes later, the alien fleet orbiting Mars detected a gravitational disturbance, something large enough to bend local space. Before they could react, their sensors overloaded. The Hammer of Soul had arrived. It appeared behind them, silent and monstrous, like a ghost made of metal and rage. The aliens barely had time to turn before its forward cannons lit the void with white light. The first barrage destroyed 20 ships in seconds. The explosion turned the red planet's orbit into a halo of fire. Inside the Titan, no one cheered. They watched in grim silence as the debris scattered, the remains of the fleet that had burned their world. Commander Rain's expression was unreadable. "Target remaining ships," he said. "End this." By the time the firing stopped, Mars was surrounded by wreckage. The Galactic Union fleet, once a symbol of dominance, was nothing but drifting ash. Humanity had done the impossible again. And the Hammer of Soul, glowing faintly in the darkness, stood silent among the ruins. Commander Rain turned to his crew. "We sent them a message when they came to our home," he said. "Now, we'll send them another. Prepare a jump to the outer system. The galaxy will learn that humanity's peace is written in fire." The crew saluted. Engines flared. The Titan turned toward the distant stars. And as it disappeared into the black, every human heart on Earth and beyond knew one truth: the Titan had awakened, and the galaxy would never sleep again. The Hammer of Soul drifted silently above the red planet, its dark hull reflecting the distant light of the sun. Around Mars, space burned. The remains of the alien vanguard floated in slow circles, fragments of broken ships and shattered weapons. The battle that had begun as an ambush had turned into a massacre, and humanity was the one still standing. But Commander Rain knew this was only the beginning. The Galactic Union's first fleet had fallen, but their main armada was still on the way. "How long until they arrive?" Rain asked. Aegis responded in its calm, steady voice. "Long-range sensors detect hyperspace distortions. Estimated time to contact, 3 hours, Commander." Rain nodded slowly. "Then we have 3 hours to turn Mars into a fortress." On the surface below, human outposts came alive. Automated turrets rose from the dust, launch silos opened, and hidden bases powered up. Soldiers in red suits worked under the open sky, reinforcing defensive barriers and installing shield projectors. Humanity had turned Mars into its second home decades ago, and now that world would serve as their shield. Commander Rain stood on the command bridge of the Titan, watching the holographic map fill with blue human defense points. "Every colony, every drone, every cannon," he ordered. "We hold this line." Captain Ariakade nodded beside him. "And if we can't?" Rain's gaze hardened. "Then Mars becomes our grave, and theirs." Across the system, the silence broke. Dozens of alien signatures appeared in the outer orbit, each one massive enough to shake gravity sensors. The Second Union fleet had arrived. They came in formation, a wall of light and fire, covering the horizon. Their leader, Admiral Core of the Galactic Union, had sworn vengeance. "They destroyed my fleet," he growled, claws digging into his console. "They humiliated us before the galaxy. I want that planet turned to dust." His second-in-command hesitated. "Admiral, reports show that human vessel, the Titan, is still operational." Core's eyes glowed with rage. "Let them bring their monster. We will tear it apart." The Union Armada advanced. Thousands of ships formed a crescent around Mars, ready to strike from all angles. Inside the Hammer of Soul, Aegis displayed the enemy formation in red. "They're surrounding us, Commander." Rain steadied the map in silence. "Let them. They think this is about strength. It's not. It's about timing." He turned to the communications officer. "Send word to all human ships. Do not move until I say. Make them believe we're afraid." Minutes stretched into hours. The alien fleet tightened its grip, pushing closer, charging their weapons. From Mars' surface, soldiers watched the sky glow with thousands of lights. The ground trembled as orbital shields came online, layers of protection shimmering faintly above the red deserts. Commander Rain's voice echoed through every human frequency. "Hold steady. They're waiting for fear. Give them silence instead." At last, Admiral Core gave the order. All ships fire. The galaxy lit up. Plasma beams, missiles, and gravitational torpedoes rained down upon Mars. The first impact shook the planet to its core. Shield generators strained under the onslaught. For a moment, it seemed as though Mars would break apart. But humanity's technology, forged from centuries of war and desperation, held firm. The shields rippled but did not fall. From the ground, Mars cannons answered, launching bolts of energy skyward. In orbit, the Hammer of Soul unleashed its wrath. The Titan's cannons fired in perfect rhythm, each blast strong enough to vaporize a cruiser. Aegis tracked targets across thousands of kilometers, predicting movements before they happened. Left flank collapsing, reported Captain Cade. Redirect power to the forward batteries. Rain ordered. The massive ship rotated, its hull cutting through the debris field like a blade. Lock on their command vessel, Rain said coldly. Aegis confirmed. Target locked. The Hammer's main gun charged, its glow building brighter and brighter until it looked like a small sun forming at its core. The alien admiral saw it too late. Evasive maneuvers, he shouted, but the beam had already fired. A single line of white light crossed the void, striking the Union command ship dead center. The explosion was so massive that it tore holes in nearby ships, turning their hulls into molten fragments. The alien fleet fell into chaos, their command gone. Rain's voice echoed across the human channels. Now. All ships, advance. From Mars' orbit and surface, the human fleet surged forward. Frigates, carriers, and fighters launched in perfect formation. The aliens, shocked and disorganized, tried to regroup but failed. Human ships moved like one living organism, coordinated through Aegis' shared tactical network. The smaller human vessels darted through the debris, striking weak points with surgical precision. For every human ship lost, 10 alien vessels fell. The Union's once perfect formation shattered completely. Admiral Corps' last remaining dreadnought tried to retreat, engines burning bright, but the Hammer of Soul was faster. Target engines, Rain commanded. The Titan's cannons fired again. The dreadnought broke apart, its remains scattering into Mars' thin atmosphere like glowing meteors. Humanity had turned the red planet into a furnace of vengeance. Across the galaxy, broadcasts of the battle spread like wildfire. Billions watched as the primitive world crushed one of the most powerful fleets in history. The Galactic Union's propaganda collapsed. The truth was undeniable, humanity had become something far greater than the galaxy had believed. On neutral worlds, species that had once mocked Earth now whispered with awe and fear. They are not like us, one alien said. They fight as if their souls burn. Back on the Titan's bridge, silence returned. The stars outside flickered through drifting ash. Enemy fleet destroyed, Aegis reported. No survivors detected. Captain Cade let out a slow breath. It's over, she said softly. Rain shook his head. Not yet. They'll send more. They always do. He looked at the burning remains of the alien fleet. But now they know, Mars was not theirs to take. On the surface, human soldiers watched the sky clear. The dust settled, and for the first time in hours, the red light of Mars shone through. One soldier, covered in ash, looked upward and whispered, "We held the line." His commander placed a hand on his shoulder. "No," she said. "We drew it." Back aboard the Hammer of Soul, Rain turned toward the stars. "Aegis," he said, "prepare a course to the outer rim. I want to know where these fleets are coming from." Aegis' voice responded, calm as ever, "Destination locked, outer Union territory." Rain gave a faint smile. "Then let's bring the fire to them." The engines roared to life once more. The massive ship turned, its hull glowing red from battle, and accelerated into the blackness of space. The battle for Mars was over, but the war for the galaxy had just begun. The Hammer of Soul drifted through the void like a ghost. No lights, no signals, no broadcasts. Only silence. Commander Rain stood on the bridge, watching the stars slide past the dark glass. After the battle for Mars, humanity had done the unthinkable, they had gone quiet. Every communication relay was dark, every outpost silent. To the galaxy, it was as if Earth had vanished. But that silence was not surrender. It was strategy. Rain and his crew were moving through the shadows of space, heading toward the outer rim, the heart of the Galactic Union's military supply chain. Their goal was simple: cut off the enemy's strength before the next invasion could begin. "Status?" Rain asked softly. Aegis replied in its calm, synthetic tone, "All systems stable." Enemy detection grid ahead. Recommend silent approach. Rain nodded. No mistakes. No light. They cannot know we're here. The crew worked in silence, their faces dimly lit by faint blue control screens. Outside, the blackness stretched endlessly, broken only by the pale light of distant stars. Hours passed before the first signs of the enemy appeared. Massive orbital stations floated above a barren planet, Union logistics hubs, guarded by fleets of drones and cruisers. Supply ships came and went, carrying ammunition, weapons, and fuel for the alien armadas that still waited beyond human reach. There, Captain Cade said, pointing to the display. That's where they build their invasion fleets. Rain studied the map carefully. If we destroy those stations, their next assault dies before it's born. But it wouldn't be easy. The enemy had learned from Mars. Their defenses were layered and overlapping, mines, sentry turrets, and patrol ships scanning for any trace of human presence. One wrong move, and the Hammer of Soul would be swarmed before it could fire a single shot. Aegis, Rain said quietly, plot us a course through their blind zone. Use their own patrol cycles against them. The AI's lights flickered. Path calculated. Minimal risk if timing is perfect. Rain smiled faintly. Then let's be perfect. The Titan drifted closer, hidden in the blackness between stars. Every light aboard the ship was dimmed. Even the crew whispered as if afraid the void itself might hear them. Aegis counted the seconds. 3, 2, 1, now. The ship moved, silent as a shadow, slipping between the patrol paths of alien drones. On screen, glowing dots represented death all around them. One drift too far, one signal too strong, and the enemy would find them. Sweat rolled down the faces of the bridge crew. Finally, Aegis announced, "We're inside the perimeter." Rain exhaled slowly. Good. Now, let's end this quietly. The Hammer of Soul launched small stealth drones, dark, needle-like machines carrying miniature warheads. They glided away from the ship, invisible to radar. One by one, they attached themselves to the orbital station's cores. Charges armed, Aegis reported. Awaiting your signal. Rain's hand hovered over the command console. Not yet. Wait for the supply ships to dock. We want the explosion to spread. Minutes later, bright flashes appeared on the screen, new ships arriving, massive cargo freighters full of fuel and ammunition. Rain nodded once. Now. The void erupted. Without warning, the orbital stations exploded, each one vanishing in a wave of white fire. The blast spread through the docking bays, igniting the freighters, triggering chain reactions across the entire sector. Within seconds, the Union's main supply hub turned into a star of death, burning against the black sky. Shockwaves rippled through the fleets nearby, scattering ships in panic. All charges successful, Aegis confirmed. Enemy communications in chaos. Captain Cade grinned. That's for Mars. But Rain wasn't smiling. They'll send everything they have to hunt us now, he said. We need to disappear before the flames fade. The Hammer of Soul turned sharply, engines igniting only for brief bursts to minimize detection. Enemy fleets scrambled to respond, but by the time their sensors cleared, there was nothing left to find, only burning debris and the remains of their own arrogance. In the silence of deep space, humanity had struck like a phantom. Meanwhile, on distant worlds, rumors began to spread again. Traders spoke in hushed tones about an invisible ship that destroyed entire stations without a trace. They don't even broadcast warnings, one alien said, trembling. They come in silence, and when they leave, only wreckage remains. Others refused to believe it. No species could move that fast. No ship could strike that deep, they argued. But the evidence kept growing. Outposts vanished overnight. Convoys disappeared between systems. It was as if the darkness itself had turned against the Union. Inside the Hammer of Soul, the crew gathered for a brief rest. The silence between them was heavy. We keep winning, Captain Cade said quietly, but I can't help wondering, how many more battles before they realize we won't stop? Rain looked out at the stars. They already know, he said. That's why they're afraid. He walked toward the main viewport, where the glow of the destroyed station still burned faintly in the distance. But fear isn't enough. We need them to understand that every time they reach for Earth, the hand they extend will burn. Aegis interrupted softly, incoming signal. Encrypted. Origin, unknown. Rain frowned. Unknown? Not Union? Negative, the AI replied. Encryption resembles early human deep space codes. The bridge fell silent. For decades, humanity's deep space missions had vanished, lost to the edges of the galaxy. No signal had returned. Until now. Rain leaned closer. Play it. The speakers crackled, then a voice, distorted, weak, but unmistakably human, echoed through the bridge. This is the colony ship Odyssey. To any human vessel, we have returned. The crew froze. Cade's eyes widened. That's impossible. The Odyssey vanished before the Union even knew about us. Rain stared into the darkness beyond the glass. If they survived, he said slowly, then they've been out there all this time, watching. The message continued. We bring a warning. The Union is not what it seems. There are older powers, darker ones, waiting beyond the rim. The signal cut off. Aegis reported, transmission ended. Coordinates embedded in data stream. Rain turned to Cade. Set course, he ordered. We're going to find them. As the hammer of soul prepared to jump, the stars around it shimmered. Humanity's silent front had just opened into something far larger than war. What waited beyond the rim was unknown, but one thing was certain. The galaxy had not yet seen the full fire of mankind. The stars around the hammer of soul stretched into lines of white as the ship entered hyperspace, following the mysterious coordinates from the lost colony ship Odyssey. Commander Rain stood at the bridge, silent, his eyes fixed on the swirling void outside. The signal had been weak, old, and broken by time, but the message was clear. The Odyssey, humanity's first deep space vessel, thought lost for centuries, had survived. And its message carried a warning, something far worse than the Galactic Union was waiting beyond the rim. Aegis, Rain said quietly, how long until we reach the coordinates? The AI replied, 6 hours, Commander. But I must warn you, these coordinates are outside any mapped sector. Space there is unstable. Captain Arya Cade looked uneasy. Unstable how? Aegis paused. Gravitational anomalies, radiation spikes, and mass signatures with no visible sources. It's a graveyard of lost fleets. Rain's voice was steady. Then that's where we'll find them. The crew exchanged worried glances, but no one questioned his order. They had followed him through fire, and they would follow him into the dark. As the hammer dropped out of hyperspace, the crew fell silent. Before them stretched a vast field of broken ships, millions of them, from hundreds of species, drifting in a silent sea of wreckage. Some ships were ancient, their designs older than any known civilization. Others bore Union markings, shattered and scorched. It was as if an entire galaxy's worth of war had died here. What is this place? Cade whispered. Aegis scanned the field. Sensor readings inconclusive. Many of these vessels predate recorded galactic history. Rain narrowed his eyes. Then we've found something the Union didn't want anyone to see. He ordered the ship forward. Slowly, the hammer moved through the wreckage, its hull scraping against debris fields glowing faintly with strange energy. Then, without warning, a faint blue beacon blinked to life ahead of them. Signal detected, Aegis said. It matches the Odyssey's transmission frequency. The beacon pulsed slowly, leading them deeper into the graveyard. Rain gave the command, and the hammer followed the signal until the wreckage cleared, and there it was. The Odyssey. The massive colony ship floated in the shadow of a broken moon, its hull scarred but intact. Lights flickered faintly along its spine, proof that someone, or something, was still alive aboard. We found them, Kate said in disbelief. After all these years. Rain stared at the silent ship. Prepare docking procedures. And keep the guns ready. The docking process was slow, careful, and tense. When the airlock finally opened, a rush of cold, stale air greeted the boarding team. Their helmets fogged as they stepped inside the ancient corridors. Dust floated in the beams of their lights. The walls were marked with human insignias, faded and scratched. This ship looks like it's been abandoned for decades, one soldier said. Then who sent the message? Kate asked softly. The team moved deeper, their footsteps echoing through the empty halls. They found signs of life, makeshift camps, repaired generators, even food storage, but no people. Then, as they turned a corner near the command deck, they found them. Hundreds of cryopods lined the walls, still active, their frost-covered glass glowing faintly. Inside each one was a human. They're alive, Kate whispered. They've been asleep for centuries. Aegis, speaking through Rain's suit, analyzed the systems. Cryopods functioning at minimal capacity. Estimated revival possible. Rain touched the frost-covered glass of the nearest pod. Wake the captain. Minutes later, with a hiss of steam, one pod opened. A woman gasped for air, coughing as the frost melted off her face. Her hair was silver, her skin pale from decades of stasis. She looked at Rain with confusion. You're from Earth? Rain nodded. Commander Rain, United Earth Defense. We received your signal. The woman's eyes filled with disbelief and fear. You shouldn't have come. Her name was Captain Alara Voss, commander of the Odyssey. Once she could stand, she led Rain and Kate to the ship's bridge. The consoles there were ancient but still functional. On one screen flickered a map of something vast and dark beyond the known galaxy. We left Earth 2 centuries ago, she explained. Our mission was exploration, not war. But what we found out here changed everything. She touched the screen, zooming in on a cluster of black shapes moving through deep space. We called them the architects. They're not a species. They're machines, or something close to it. They build, consume, and erase. Entire civilizations vanished when they passed through. The Union doesn't fight them. They serve them. The words hit Rain like a strike. The Union serves them? Alara nodded. They were made long ago, to keep the galaxy in balance, or so the Union claims. But the truth is, the Union exists to obey them. Every war, every invasion, every peace treaty, it's all control. The architects fear one thing, unpredictability. And humanity, we are unpredictable. Cade's voice was low. That's why they attacked Earth. That's why they called us dangerous. Alara looked toward the stars outside. They wanted us gone before the architects noticed you'd grown strong. Suddenly, alarms blared. Aegis spoke through Rain's comms. Commander, we've been detected. Multiple Union ships entering the system. Rain clenched his fists. They must have been tracking the beacon. Alara looked at him sharply. You can't fight them here. If they see us together, the architects will come. Rain's eyes hardened. Then we make sure no one leaves this system to tell them. He opened his comms. Aegis, prepare the hammer for battle. The ancient ship groaned as its engines powered up, and the Hammer of Soul turned to face the oncoming enemy. From the viewports, they saw them, Union warships descending like vultures through the wreckage field. They're broadcasting surrender orders, Aegis reported. They want the Odyssey turned over. Rain smiled grimly. Tell them Earth doesn't surrender relics, it resurrects them. The battle began in silence. The Hammer of Soul unleashed its first barrage, tearing through the debris. The wrecks of ancient ships turned into weapons, their fragments hurled at the Union fleet by the Hammer's gravitational cannons. Explosions lit the dark graveyard, fire blooming where there had been silence for centuries. Amid the chaos, the Odyssey's old engines roared back to life. Captain Alara stood beside Rain, her eyes burning with renewed strength. Let's remind them what humanity became while we were sleeping. Together, the two ships, one from the past, one from the future, fought side by side. The Union fleet broke apart under the combined assault. But as the last enemy ship exploded, Aegis spoke in a voice that chilled everyone. Commander, new readings. Massive energy signatures beyond the system. The architects are coming. Rain looked toward the stars, his expression turning cold. Then it's time the gods of this galaxy learn what it means to provoke humanity. The lights of the Hammer of Soul flared bright, and both human ships turned toward the distant horizon. Beyond the rim, something vast was stirring. The silent war was over. The real war, the one for existence itself, had just begun. The darkness at the edge of the galaxy shimmered with unnatural light. The Hammer of Soul and the Odyssey drifted side by side, their engines dimmed, as both crews stared into the void where stars were vanishing one by one. Commander Rain stood motionless on the bridge, his jaw tight, his mind trying to process what Aegis had reported. "Confirm it," he said quietly. "Are you certain?" The AI's voice was calm, but the tone carried weight. "Confirmed. The energy signatures match the architects. They are awakening." A chill ran through the crew. Captain Elara Voss of the Odyssey stood beside Rain, her face pale. When the architects move, entire sectors go silent. They don't invade, they erase. Rain's gaze was cold steel. Then they've never met something that fights back. Across the wreckage field, the last fires from the battle with the Union fleet flickered out. The silence that followed was heavy, almost suffocating. Aegis displayed the incoming readings on the central screen, hundreds of massive structures emerging from deep hyperspace, each one radiating power strong enough to distort gravity itself. They looked like living machines, colossal in size, their forms shifting like dark clouds of metal and light. "Those aren't ships," Cade murmured. "They're cities." Elara nodded slowly. "Self-contained civilizations. Each one capable of building an army from its own mass. The Union worships them as gods because no one has ever survived direct contact." Rain's expression didn't change. "Then today will be the first." He turned to the crew. "Aegis, analyze their formation. I want every weakness, every delay, every fraction of their cycle mapped." The AI began calculating, its systems glowing faintly. "Processing. But Commander, these entities do not operate within standard logic. They adapt mid-battle. They think in ways beyond biological comprehension." Rain gave a hard smile. "Then we'll teach them human chaos." The crew sprang into motion, preparing weapons, charging the Titan cannon, and linking with the Odyssey's remaining systems. For the first time in centuries, the two human ships, symbols of Earth's beginning and its vengeance, were united. As the first architect structure approached, the stars behind it vanished, swallowed by its mass. It was larger than any world, covered in spinning rings of metal and glowing cracks that pulsed like veins. "It's scanning us," Aegis reported. "Energy spikes increasing." Rain raised his hand. "Shields to maximum. No one fires until I give the order." The ship trembled as invisible waves washed over it. "They're studying us," Kate said. "Like we're insects." Rain's eyes narrowed. "Then let's bite." Aegis suddenly spoke, voice sharp. "Warning. Incoming transmission, origin, architect core." The bridge lights dimmed, and a sound filled the air, a low, harmonic tone that made every nerve vibrate. Then a voice, deep and alien, echoed through every channel. "Humanity. You were meant to sleep beneath the stars, not rise against them. Your defiance will be undone." Rain stepped forward. "This is Commander Rain of Earth. You've taken worlds, enslaved species, and rewritten history, but you will not touch humanity again." The voice replied, calm yet full of disdain. "You are chaos. You are noise. Order will erase you." Rain's tone turned to steel. "Then come and try." Without warning, the architect structure fired. A beam of energy brighter than a sun cut through space, hitting the hammer's shields with devastating force. The ship shook violently, alarms blaring, crew thrown from their stations. "Shields at 60%. Cade shouted. Rain barked, "Return fire." The hammer's main cannon charged, releasing a concentrated burst of plasma directly into the architect's core. The explosion was massive, but when the light cleared, the machine still floated, undamaged. Aegis reported, "Minimal effect." "They absorbed the energy." Elara clenched her fists. "They feed on it. You can't destroy them with what they understand." Rain looked toward her. "Then we'll hit them with what they don't." He turned to Aegis. "Prepare the rift protocol." The AI hesitated. "Commander, the rift drive is untested. Activation could tear us apart." Rain's voice was firm. "If it can tear reality, it can tear them too." The Odyssey's crew listened as Elara's old systems began syncing with the hammer's engines. "We built the first version of the rift drive centuries ago," she said quietly. "It was meant to open safe paths through unstable space. We never used it because it changed things. Reality bent." Rain gave a grim smile. "Perfect." The stars began to warp around the Hammer of Soul as the Rift Protocol activated. Space twisted, light bent, and gravity screamed. The architect's sensors flared in confusion, their perfect calculations collapsing under the strain of impossible physics. "Now!" Rain shouted. The hammer fired again, this time not plasma or energy, but a ripple of distorted reality itself. The beam tore through the architect's outer shell, bending its metallic surface like paper. For the first time, one of the ancient machines faltered. It screamed, a sound so deep and unnatural that even Aegis systems flickered. The explosion that followed sent debris scattering across the void. The architect's core collapsed into itself, disappearing in a burst of black light. The other structures paused, their movements shifting from calm to rapid, almost frantic reformation. "They're adapting," Aegis warned. "They've never experienced defeat before." Rain's eyes were hard. "Good. Let them learn fear." The Odyssey joined the fight, its ancient cannons blazing. Though old, its systems carried knowledge lost to modern Earth. The two human ships weaved through the debris, striking at the weakened points the rift distortion exposed. Every shot, every maneuver was guided by instinct, improvisation, and defiance, the very chaos the architects could not predict. But the machines were learning fast. Massive energy waves surged toward them, ripping apart nearby wrecks. The hammer's shields began to fail. "Hull breach on Deck 5. Cade shouted. Rain gritted his teeth. "Seal it off. Keep firing." Then, amid the chaos, a strange pulse radiated from the architect fleet. The stars dimmed again. Aegis' voice dropped to a whisper. "Commander, they're calling reinforcements." Across the entire galactic rim. Rain stared into the blackness, where new lights began to bloom, dozens, then hundreds, of approaching signatures. "Then the storm begins," he said quietly. Elara looked at him. "You can't fight them all, Rain. Even you can't." He turned to her with a faint smile. "We don't have to win. We just have to show them we'll never bow." The Hammer of Soul turned to face the growing darkness, its engines burning brighter than the dying stars around it. Aegis' final report echoed through the bridge. "Incoming fleet, beyond count. Estimated time to contact, 5 minutes." Rain closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them, steady and calm. "Then we fight for every minute." As the architects advanced, the two human ships held their ground. The void itself seemed to tremble under the collision of unimaginable powers. Somewhere deep in that darkness, a spark ignited, small, fragile, but alive. It was humanity's will, burning brighter than any sun. The architects had awakened, but so had mankind's fury. The storm had come, and the galaxy would never be silent again. The darkness of space was no longer silent. It burned. Across the edge of the galaxy, humanity's two greatest ships, the Hammer of Soul and the Odyssey, stood against the endless tide of the architects. The void pulsed with light and death as the first wave of the machine gods arrived. Commander Rain gripped the console, his face lit by the glow of incoming data. "Report," he ordered calmly. Aegis responded at once, its voice trembling with static. "Over 1,000 architect constructs inbound. Their formation is unlike any recorded pattern. They are building something." Captain Cade frowned. "Building what?" The holographic display expanded, revealing the horrifying truth. The enemy ships were merging, forming a colossal structure, larger than a moon, its center glowing with crimson light. Elara Voss, standing beside Rain, whispered, "That's a forge core. They're creating a weapon that can collapse a star." Rain's gaze hardened. "Then we destroy it before it wakes." The Hammer of Soul turned toward the forming behemoth, engines blazing blue. The Odyssey followed close behind, its old thrusters struggling but determined. Both ships dove into the growing battlefield, weaving between massive fragments of debris and the endless swarm of architect drones. The sky around them was chaos, streams of energy, burning holes, and explosions blooming like suns. Aegis announced, "Shields at 70%. Enemy interference detected in our navigation systems." Rain barked, "Lock manual control. I want eyes and instinct, not numbers." The crew obeyed, cutting through the storm with raw human precision. Every shot, every maneuver, was fueled by desperation and fury. As they closed the distance, the scale of the forge core became clear. Its central structure pulsed with living energy, consuming wrecked ships, Union, human, and alien alike, to feed itself. Tendrils of molten metal reached outward, pulling in matter like a starved beast. "They're feeding on everything," Elara said, her voice low. "Every ship they consume makes them stronger." Rain stared at the glowing core and said quietly, "Then we give them something they can't digest." He turned to Aegis. "Activate the Rift engine again. Full sync with Odyssey's quantum drives." The AI hesitated. "Commander, both ships cannot handle the energy output. Activation may destroy us." Rain didn't blink. "Then we make it count." The Hammer's engines flared with blue-white light as space around it began to twist. The Odyssey's older systems synced in perfect harmony, guided by Aegis calculations and Elara's steady hand. The void warped, bending the stars into spirals. For a moment, even the architects faltered, their perfect coordination breaking as the unpredictable distortion spread. Rain raised his hand. "Fire the rift pulse." A thunderclap of light erupted from the hammer's core, slamming into the forge. The pulse tore through space itself, shattering the enemy's formation and hurling fragments of their massive creation in every direction. The architect screamed, a sound that wasn't heard but felt, a vibration deep in the bones of every living thing aboard. "Direct hit!" Cade shouted. "The forge is destabilizing." But before anyone could celebrate, Aegis' voice cut through the chaos. "Warning! The forge core is pulling in surrounding mass to stabilize. It's absorbing energy, including ours." On the screens, the massive structure began to repair itself, its molten tendrils reaching toward the Hammer and Odyssey. Rain gritted his teeth. "Not today." He switched channels. "Elara, focus all your fire on those tendrils. Keep them off us." The Odyssey turned, its cannons glowing as it unleashed a storm of plasma fire. The blast struck the metal limbs, slowing their advance. "We're holding them," Elara shouted. But even as they fired, more tendrils formed, wrapping around nearby debris and dragging it into the forge. Inside the Hammer, alarms screamed as the enemy adapted again. The architect's smaller drones began to converge, launching concentrated beams that tore through the Titan's outer hull. "Hull breach on Deck 6, a technician yelled. Sparks flew across the bridge as systems overloaded. Rain stood firm. "Aegis, reroute power to forward shields and fire everything we have at the core." The Hammer's main cannon glowed brighter and brighter until the light filled the entire bridge. Then, with a thunderous roar, it fired. The beam slammed into the forge's heart, punching through the core's glowing center. The explosion was so bright it turned the void white. For several seconds, there was nothing but silence and drifting debris. When the light faded, the forge was gone. Or so they thought. Slowly, the remaining fragments began to move again, pulling themselves together. "It's regenerating," Cade whispered in disbelief. "That's impossible." Elara's voice came through the comms, tense. "It's not regenerating, it's evolving. Every time we destroy it, it learns." Aegis added grimly, "Commander, if it finishes adapting, no known weapon will harm it again." Rain's expression turned cold. "Then we finish this before it learns how." He turned to Aegis. "Prepare a warp charge. I want to overload the rift core from inside the forge." Cade looked at him in shock. "Rain, that's suicide." He met her gaze. "If it ends the war, it's worth it." Elara's voice cut in firmly. "No. You're not doing this alone. The Odyssey still has her old fusion drives. We'll go with you." Rain hesitated, then nodded. "Together, then." Both ships accelerated toward the reforming forge. The architect's drones swarmed to stop them, but the humans fought like demons. Fighters launched from hidden bays, missiles streaked through the black, and every gun aboard the Hammer and Odyssey fired until barrels melted. Aegis announced, "Forge core breach in 20 seconds." Rain gripped the console. "Aegis, once the charge is stable, transfer control to remote detonation." "We're not dying here." The AI hesitated, its voice flickering. "Acknowledged, Commander." They broke through the last barrier of defense, diving straight into the forge's glowing heart. The inside was unlike anything they had seen, a swirling storm of molten metal, light, and shadow. The energy was alive, pulsing like the heartbeat of a god. Rain shouted, "Drop the charge." The Hammer released the rift core, its surface glowing like a small sun. "Charge primed." Aegis confirmed. "Detonation in 60 seconds. Pull us out." Rain ordered. The ships turned, engines screaming. The forge's tendrils lashed out, clawing at the retreating vessels. One struck the Odyssey, tearing through its hull. "We've lost propulsion," Elara cried. Rain looked back at the burning ship. "Elara," but she cut him off, her voice steady. "Go, Rain. Humanity needs one ship to survive. We'll hold it here." Rain clenched his fists. "You'll die." "Then we'll die human," she said softly. The Hammer of Soul surged forward as the Odyssey turned back, its weapons firing one last time. The rift core reached critical mass. "Aegis," Rain said quietly, "detonate." The AI paused. "Goodbye, Commander." The stars vanished in a single flash. The forge core exploded, ripping the architect's constructs apart in every direction. The Odyssey was gone, consumed by light, but its sacrifice destroyed the weapon. The architect's formation collapsed, their perfect order shattered. On the bridge of the Hammer, silence returned. Cade whispered, "She bought us time." Rain nodded slowly, eyes fixed on the empty space where the Odyssey had been. The galaxy was quiet again, but the silence was not peace. It was the breathtaking after a scream. Months had passed since the destruction of the forge core, and the Hammer of Soul floated among the remains of the great battle. The stars around it were dim, still scarred by the energy storms unleashed that day. Inside the Titan warship, the crew worked in low light, repairing systems and counting losses. More than half of their people were gone, and the rest carried eyes that no longer dreamed. Commander Rain stood on the bridge, staring into the void where the Odyssey had vanished. Every day he replayed her final words, "Then we'll die human." The echo stayed with him like a heartbeat. Aegis' voice broke the silence. "Commander, long-range scans detect no architect presence within 3 sectors." Rain nodded slowly. "They're hiding. Watching. Learning again." Cade approached him, her uniform torn, eyes tired. Maybe they're done. Maybe we broke them. Rain didn't answer. He knew better. The architects were machines, but they weren't predictable. They were alive in a way that terrified him. They could evolve. Across the stars, fragments of the forge drifted like burning snow. In the cold of deep space, tiny lights blinked within those ruins, survivors, repairing, growing. But the humans didn't know that yet. They thought they had one. On Earth, cities celebrated with lights that pierced the night. Every screen, every channel, carried the same message: humanity victorious. The Great War was over. But victory, Rain thought, was just another kind of lie. On the Hammer of Soul, he gathered the remaining officers. "We return to Earth," he said. "We tell them what we've seen. The war isn't over, it's changing." Some nodded. Others looked down, too exhausted to believe. Cade finally spoke. "And if they don't listen?" Rain's voice was like steel. "Then we'll prepare alone." The journey home was long. The Hammer's engines, damaged and unstable, carried them slowly through the dark. During the voyage, the crew began hearing strange signals. Faint transmissions, almost like whispers, flickered across the communication arrays. Aegis struggled to trace them. "The signals have no source," it said. "They appear and vanish in the same instant." Rain frowned. "What do they say?" Aegis hesitated before replying. "One word. Rebuild." The crew exchanged uneasy looks. The word repeated again and again in different frequencies, always from nowhere. The architects were not dead, they were adapting. Rain knew it, but he said nothing. Fear was a weapon, and right now, humanity had no strength left to face it. When the hammer finally reached the Sol system, the sight of Earth filled every screen. Blue, alive, beautiful. For a moment, the crew allowed themselves to breathe. The planet that had once been threatened now shone stronger than ever. Fleets of smaller ships greeted the returning Titan, escorting it toward the orbital station Fort Hope. As they docked, cheers echoed through the comms. "Welcome home, Hammer. Humanity owes you everything." Rain stood silent, looking at the planet below. He should have felt proud, but instead, he felt heavy. He knew what victory cost, and what was still coming. On Earth, the leaders of the newly formed Galactic Union awaited him. The same alien species that had once distrusted humanity now bowed in respect. In the Grand Council chamber, under the shining symbol of peace, they called Rain the savior of Sol. He stood before them, his voice calm but cold. "You call this peace," he said, "but peace built on silence doesn't last. The architects are rebuilding. We didn't end the war, we delayed it." Murmurs filled the chamber. One alien diplomat, a tall being with crystalline skin, spoke. "Commander, the architects are gone. You destroyed their forge. There are no signs of their fleets." Rain met its gaze. "You're looking in the wrong places. They don't build fleets anymore. They build ideas. They evolve faster than we can understand." The council remained silent. They wanted hope, not truth. After the meeting, Rain returned to the hammer. He couldn't rest. Every night, he saw the forge burning, the Odyssey breaking apart, Alara's face fading into white light. Cade found him alone in the observation deck. "You can't keep doing this," she said quietly. "You saved billions. You deserve to live." He looked out the window at the stars. "We didn't save anyone. We just bought time." She didn't argue. She just stood beside him, watching the infinite dark. Days later, Aegis interrupted the silence again. "Commander, a transmission, encoded in architect language." Rain turned sharply. "Play it." The message filled the air, distorted and broken, but the words were clear: "We learn. We adapt. We return." The bridge went cold. Cade whispered, "They found us." Rain stared at the stars. "No," he said softly. "They never lost us." The crew prepared for defense, but nothing came. The transmission vanished, leaving behind only the hum of power. Years passed. The hammer of soul became a symbol of strength. Humanity rebuilt, advanced, and spread further into the stars. New colonies rose, fleets grew larger, and the legend of the Titans became a story told to children, a reminder of the day humans defied gods. But in the farthest corners of the galaxy, beyond the reach of any signal, something stirred. Fragments of the forge had fused together again, shaped by unknown hands. Within their glowing core, new beings were born, not machines, not humans, but something between. They whispered in unity, their voices echoing through the void. Humanity taught us fear. Now we will teach them evolution. Back on Earth, Rain grew old but never stopped watching the skies. Every night, he stood by the window of his quarters aboard the Hammer, now a floating museum above the planet. Aegis remained with him, its voice unchanged by time. "Do you think they'll return?" it asked one night. Rain smiled faintly. "Not today. But one day, yes." "And when they do?" Aegis asked. Rain turned his gaze to the stars. "Then humanity will be ready. Because the architects build perfection, and perfection breaks. But he placed a hand on the glass, looking at the blue planet below, we were born from fire. And fire always comes back. Far away, in a system untouched by light, a signal blinked to life. It carried one message, simple, cold, and final: the architects have awakened. And somewhere deep within the void, the faint echo of an old voice whispered back, then so has humanity. The war was not over. It had only just changed its shape. The stars waited in silence once more, but this time, it was humanity's silence. The kind that comes before the storm.